Hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News, Monday, August 11th, 10 a.m. And we're going to talk a little bit about labor unions and the pivotal moment in history that we are watching as we sit here. Just to give you two other very, very important points in the labor industry history. Number one, March 25th, 1911, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in Greenwich Village, New York. The fire began, and the reason it was such a massive fatality, 123 women and girls and 23 men either burned to death, died of smoke inhalation, or threw themselves from the building to escape the fire, was due to the fact that management had locked all the doors that would give them access to the hallways or to the balconies to stop them from going on illegal breaks. This was back in the old days where you peed under the counter and did all that kind of stuff, and you had one break a day, much as we see in Indonesia today, thanks to the Nike Corporation. Secondly, and it was actually part of a larger overall thing that we called the Coalfield Wars out in West Virginia, the Battle of Blair Mountain. If you hadn't read about it or if you hadn't seen the movie Matewan, which I suggest that you may want to do, all you little Bolsheviks, September of 1921, post World War I, the coal prices are plummeting. The war is over. 10,000 miners decide that they would like to bring the Union into the coal fields and are stopped by 3,000 fortified positions, 3,000 men in fortified positions, which are lawmen and security for the mines, equipped with up to and including crew serviced automatic weapons, machine guns, as we call them these days. The battle went on for a number of days and also included the first time that Americans had ever dropped aerial bombs or poison gas onto other Americans. Not to be done until, I don't know, Waco or one of those other events, but this was the formation of it. This brought attention nationally to the plight of the coal miner and what shit conditions they were in, much the same way as Triangle Shirtwaist brought to the women who were, that was, I guess, piecework labor for the garment industry. Greenwich Village was very big in the garment industry at that time. And now, on the shoulders of this, people are trying to unionize Starbucks. And you can see how it would always come to that, right? Uh, it's got to be the most laughable thing. And I come from a community that understood the union, was in the union. We had Teamsters, we had operating engineers, real union stuff. The roofers, where I was a very hard union when I was young. In fact, they murdered the president of it. Iron workers, also, same kind of thing. And what you have to look at is the hows and whys and why this is ridiculous and why the trade unions and service unions themselves are pretty much avoiding this shit like the plague. This is cosplay at its worst, and it's just, I don't know what else to say about it. We'll just give you some numbers, okay? So Starbucks is evil. We all know that. Nobody goes there if they can. Luckily, where we live, we have two also rans, which are very good. Plus, we have 40,000 little Cuban coffee shops. If you must have cafe colada or things like that, you can have it there. We have a company called Seed, which is very good. We have very good coffee, and then some other little things to have. And then we have the Dandy Donuts, which used to be Tim Horton, which is, the donuts are good, the coffee is mad, but the service is good. And we get hipsters in there because it used to be Tim Hortons. Believe it or not, they can go there and not go to Dunkin' Donuts. Nobody goes to Dunkin' Donuts unless you have just gotten out of the stockade or you have to go to a 12-step meeting 15 minutes from then. So let's go back to hating Starbucks. Obviously, the people that work there nowadays do hate it in certain areas. Okay. What people have to understand when you see these people crying, and really it's usually not about the pay, because Starbucks already pays more than most coffee and fast food competitors. I'm not saying Starbucks is great. I don't like their marketing. I don't like a lot about it, but they are what they are. I've seen the originator owner and how he came up and everything else. But we're talking an average of 17.50 an hour. And this is with full benefits. You can go to South Florida Conservative.com. We have a number of charts where you can see how the benefits packages stack up versus everybody else, how they actually stack up versus union grocery store people, which is this close, okay? And part-timers, you're at about 20 hours a week, okay? You get medical, dental, vision, a 401k match, and even tuition coverage through Arizona State University, which means you could either get a degree in accounting or become a porn star, which just seems to be how it works out, right? Now, if you look at Dunkin' Donut or Panera Bread, they get $13 to $15 an hour and they get no real benefits. And Starbucks is starting to look pretty much like a Ritz-Carlton of espresso bars, right? So you have this movement called Starbucks Workers United. They want grocery union pay, which is an entirely different thing. People that work in the grocery store, believe it or not, there's a lot of training. There are a lot of certificate type courses, especially if you're going to be a meat cutter, you're going to work in the produce sections, things like that. There is a lot going on there. The grocery union pay is $22 to $25 an hour. They have guaranteed hours. That's full benefits for anyone working 10 hours a week or more, and hazard pay in unsafe conditions. You can figure that out yourself, right? Now, that looks great on paper, but there's the problem. Grocery workers under UFCW, which is United Federation of Grocery Clerks of, grocery clerks, right? Have decades of bargaining. They've done this for a long time. My mother was a cashier for the Acme, which was a regional, and this is in the 70s. And you really had a hard time getting into the union because the company restricted the hours, things like that. Didn't matter about quality. Everybody wanted to be in because that's when you started getting treated better or treated, humanely. Okay. So you have decades of bargaining clout. They have larger bargaining units and a skill set, which is much, much wider than anybody working at a Starbucks. So this goes from operating heavy equipment to handling hazardous materials. And this is in the meat and the seafood departments. Your average barista, they train them in a couple of weeks. And the turnover is sky high. Most don't even stick around long enough to see the 3-year contract through. Okay. So here's the kicker with this one. All right. These small, high turnover units make it easy for Starbucks corporate to just close the store or shuffle staff. In union strategy terms, that's like bringing a paper straw to a sword fight. I can easily close the store down. I don't have to hear with your bullshit, and then I don't have to hire you guys anymore. So here's the collateral damage. They are having these so-called red cup rebellions and holiday walkouts. They don't hurt the corporate so much, okay? They do annoy the customers. They do disrupt coworkers who aren't part of the protest. And these are also the coworkers that you have seen launching toxic workplace or toxic workplace environment lawsuits because they don't want to be part of it. They don't want to wear the gay flag. They don't want to be trans. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. They aren't supporting Palestine. They're there to fucking sell some coffee and pay for their kids' eyeglasses, right? They're not there for this. And that is the big issue. All right. You have a public perception of unions as theoretical protectors of the worker. These guys aren't arguing over the money. They want addition. It's always more, always more, always more. But it's much like the WNBA, they don't deliver anything for the money that they want. They don't want to, the last big thing with these unions, that union was they wanted to wear whatever kind of shirt they wanted or something like that. Of all things, if you talk to somebody who is in or has been years in, somebody from the Greeley Hall over in New Jersey, right? and you say, hey, we're going to go on strike because we want to wear a t-shirt that says, I love to suck this or suck that, or I support this, they would beat you in the parking lot. We don't go on strike unless we have to go on strike. They go on strike because it's a hissy fit. Unions go on strike because it's done strategically. Boeing is on strike as of now, I think. What's today? Monday, August 11th? I believe that Boeing is on strike when it just got a major contract to supply stuff to the as a military contract and a civilian contract, and they went on strike for God knows what, because they can barely build an airplane anymore. They need to fire the front office, and they need to get whoever the asshole agitators are and get them out as well. Turn the company around. That's when you have both are bad, which is a really shit situation for a stockholder. When your front office is garbage and your labor union is garbage, okay? Which is what happened to the American car industry forever, right? So we got this activist factor going on here, which is the SBWU, which is the Starbucks Workers Union. Their loudest organizers aren't career baristas, they are political activists, many with openly socialist leanings, using this movement as a cat's paw to get themselves into bigger, more influential unions. Their idea is we get all this organized, I'll be able to go to the UFCW, which would be the grocery clerks or something like that. There's actually a number of them. I use the grocery clerks because they sort of came across on more things, because the hospitality workers union is a little more difficult because that spreads down into like the bartenders union. They're all under an umbrella. This was a more general thing that fit in, and that's why we used the grocery clerks. Also because the pricing was very similar to grocery clerks. And that's what I'm saying. You're working at this not incredibly talented job, not incredibly demanding, not incredibly anything really. And you're demanding the benefits and wages and everything else of these other people who had to learn these jobs. Now, granted, if you live in South Florida and you go to Publix and you see some of the people that are on, you don't know how the hell they get hired. There are people in there that actually do keep the store going, and they're the ones we're talking about, right? I don't believe Publix is union, but I think Kroger may be in a couple of the other ones. So you have to go around and see what it's going to be there. Okay. Let's not get into the weeds on this. So the problem that they have is a lot of socialists, a lot of gamers, as far as gaming the system to try to get into the hierarchy of organized labor, much as they were in it back in the Mother Jones era, when there were hardcore dedicated socialists and communists who were in the labor movement to subvert it, to make them, harm the United States, and more about harming the United States, less about helping the people, because they were always able to play, well, you're getting hurt because the capitalists, blah, blah, blah. That's the same game that you're going to hear out of these Starbucks workers union guys. So this is nothing new. Okay, but it does do is cast a bad light upon traditional labor unions that are still operational, which is why, even though they may support them on paper, you do not see AFL-CIO jumping into the bathtub with the SBWU, which is the Starbucks people. They're not going to kill themselves over these. I'm interested in it this week, and then I'm going to go away next week. That's the problem. Mature unions like the UFCW or Unite Here prize stability, contract discipline, and keeping the focus on enforceable economic gains. You're going to see more out of these guys if and when the financial markets pick up and start to follow what the president has put down as far as these economic policies. Those are going to be the last big hurrah for labor unions. They need to get in there. They need to get in there now. They have to be proactive, because if you need huge amounts of construction personnel in trades, electricians, plumbers, things of that nature, there is no mechanism out there right now to do that, except for what the union locals had, because they all have their own school. Okay. So that's where you're going to you should be going that way. Trump's familiar with the unions. He's had to deal with them his whole life. He doesn't have to love them, but he understands what they can do. All right. He did not come out openly with it because he's always playing around with the auto workers union, which honestly, I think you're going to find that there is more to life than the auto workers union. And we should all be pushing through that as the world of the combustion engine is ever changing, right? So here's what we have with true side of this is Starbucks decided if Starbucks decided tomorrow to go franchise, right? McDonald's, Burger King, Subway, they're all franchise. The entire national union effort for this organization would collapse overnight. It would cost the national a good deal of money, but it would destroy forever the chances to do this. So instead of one big corporate target, you'd have to fight with hundreds of small franchise owners. No national contract, no leverage. All right. So it'd be what they would consider like hyper local fights, which never succeed in fast food. So where does it leave these guys and where does it leave us? Actually, I have no dog in the fight. As I said, I wouldn't go into one of those places. And I think if you are interested in this shit at all, you should say to yourself, they knew it was coming in a way. They didn't expect it to come from this activist socialist shit. I think they expected it to come from the hospitality workers or somebody like that. Look at the amount of money that is generated by the Starbucks brand in selling bagged coffee, either ground or whole bean, and all the drinks that they make. All those drinks. You go into the gas station up here. I think there would be like an entire shelf of just Starbucks type drinks. Okay. They know that something's gonna hit them. They don't know when, but they know something's gonna hit them. And they have been slowly preparing by cranking this stuff out. Okay. Because if they shut down the Starbucks that just opened over near me because it's a traffic hazard, you could still go to the gas station or the Stab and Go or wherever you wanted to go and buy the double shot or the this or that, but it's just cold, right? If you had to have it hot, you could go to Seed, you could go to Dandy, you could go to wherever. That's just my area. I'm sure you have your own companies like Seed and Dandy where you are. Okay. So they're doing this just to do this, to feel like they're doing something. They are cosplaying. Again, the term cosplay comes up. They are cosplaying at a union, which is when nobody takes them seriously. They are doing damage to the image of labor unions. If I was involved in a labor union, I wouldn't go into one of the fucking places if they were pushing this side of it. This is not all the stores. This is some of the stores, probably in Portland or places like that. Most of them are pretty cool about it. I know there's some kind of whatever built-in elitism for working in a fucking coffee shop, and I have no idea why it comes to that. But then again, I saw it in the Mexican food industry where Taco Bell was paying more than this place in Philadelphia. But at the place in Philadelphia, you could get high in the walk-in. So people would work there that were cool because they could get high in the walk-in, whereas Taco Bell, they just did bumps in their car and came in and mixed that mystery meat together. So if you have any other questions about this, let us know. It's a shame. I feel bad for the people. I've watched older people who needed those benefits get pushed out of jobs. National, actually, I feel not much for National because they let that shit happen, right? So they should be getting kicked in the balls for a lot of things, but not necessarily for this. I'm not allowed to wear a t-shirt that broadcasts my beliefs. That is not what you're there to do. You're there to sell fucking coffee to some asshole for $10. That's what you're there to do. You're not there to do anything else. You want to go out and march in a parade somewhere, then go march in a parade somewhere, but don't bring it into the workplace. All right. So that's all I have for you for now. And otherwise, have a good day. We got some interesting stuff coming up this week, so we'll see what goes on with that. Any questions on these union things? We try to answer as best we can. We are theoretically neutral, but we all, three of us have a lot of experience being around them, which is why this is such an effing joke. Okay. So that's all. Talk to you later on.